The Great Pyramid of Giza rises from the desert like a mountain shaped by human hands. Its stones have stood through 45 centuries of wind and sun. People still ask how it was built and why. Ancient writers told strange stories about the pharaoh who ordered it, stories that mix history with rumor. Somewhere between the facts carved in stone and the tales told long after, a legend took root, one that still makes us wonder what kind of price was paid to raise the greatest monument on Earth. But before we face the legend that tried to explain it, we need to understand the world that built it. You see, Pharaoh Khufu ruled Egypt around 2589 to 2566 BC. The Greeks called him Cheops. He was the son of King Sneferu, and he wanted a monument that outdid them all. So, he built the Great Pyramid, once the tallest structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. It stood about 481 feet tall and covered a base 755 feet wide. It was made from roughly 2.3 million blocks, each weighing a few tons. That's about 6 million tons of stone. Basically, the weight of too many elephants to count. The Greek historian Herodotus claimed it took 100,000 men 20 years to finish. Modern archaeology cuts that down to about 20,000 workers. Most were farmers who worked part-time when the Nile flooded their fields. It was a kind of tax paid with sweat instead of coins. So, no, these people weren't slaves. They worked in organized crews and even left graffiti like Friends of Khufu inside the pyramid, ancient job pride at its finest. And south of the pyramid, archaeologists found their village. It had homes, bakeries, breweries, and even cemeteries. They lived on bread, beer, cattle, and fish, all supplied by the state. Herodotus mentioned they ate so many radishes, onions, and garlic that it cost a fortune, about 1,600 silver talents. Who knows if that part's true, but it shows how big the operation was just to keep everyone fed. Then, in 2013, something remarkable turned up. The Diary of Mera. It's a 4,500-year-old papyrus written by an official who oversaw limestone transport. It describes how workers shipped fine Tura limestone by boat along the Nile to Giza. Khufu's engineers even dug canals and built a port right beside the pyramid. Boats likely pulled in close, dropping off bright white stones for the pyramid's outer shell. The diary and other finds show how organized the whole thing was. Khufu ran it like a national project, using Egypt's wealth and manpower. Stone was quarried, shipped, carried up ramps, and placed under tight supervision. Everything was tracked: food, tools, people, and stone. The project ran on taxes and resources collected from across the kingdom. Still, it's hard to understand the scale. Could royal funds really handle something that massive? Maybe it pushed Egypt to its limits. And maybe that's why later generations wondered if Khufu had help, of a kind no one could explain. This brings us to the various theories and speculations. Now, as pharaoh, Khufu controlled Egypt's full wealth. He could take grain from harvests, cattle from the delta, limestone from quarries, and copper from mines. Farmers paid taxes with their crops and their time. The state then used those taxes to feed and equip the workers who built his dream. Such a project only works under a strong, centralized government. And Khufu's reign seems to have been exactly that. Even so, the pyramid's scale must have strained his treasury. He may have pulled wealth from temples, taxed the nobility, or demanded tribute from nearby lands. And when that wasn't enough, he probably just made new taxes. Later writings hint that people grew tired of his demands. Around 450 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus came to Egypt. He wrote what local priests told him. They said Khufu, or Cheops as they called him, closed the temples and stopped sacrifices to the gods. He made his people work for him instead. They said that 100,000 men labored in 3-month shifts for 30 years. They built roads, dragged stones, and dug underground chambers. If true, it was one long nightmare. Herodotus claimed the misery lasted 106 years through the reigns of Khufu and his son Khafre. He said people hated both kings so much that they refused to say their names. Instead, they called the pyramids of Philotis the shepherd. Philotis was said to be a kind man who herded his flocks nearby. Maybe it was a joke, or maybe confusion with later rulers called the shepherd kings. Either way, it showed how far Khufu's image had fallen. Over time, people began telling darker versions of the story, and that's how the wildest rumor of all showed up. They imagined Khufu's hunger for stone driving him to desperate measures. That's when legend stepped in, especially the tale of his daughter, who supposedly took a scandalous route to help fund her father's pyramid. Herodotus hinted that Khufu's own daughter sold herself to raise money for the pyramid. She supposedly even asked each customer to bring a stone for her father's tomb. It's hard to know if that was gossip or myth. Probably both. But it stuck. Even after thousands of years, people still remembered the scandal more than the truth. Herodotus wrote, "So evil a man was Cheops that, for lack of money, he made his daughter sit in a brothel and charge a fee. Each man had to bring her a stone, and with those stones, she supposedly built her own small pyramid beside her father's. He described it as the one standing midmost of the three near the Great Pyramid, about 150 feet on each side. Today, archaeologists say those smaller pyramids belonged to Khufu's wives or close relatives, not a daughter. Still, the story stuck. People liked to connect the real pyramids to scandal. The image is memorable after all. A royal princess in a brothel, trading stones for her own tomb. In Egypt, that idea was absurd. Royal women were guarded. Their marriages were arranged for politics, not pleasure. So the story makes Khufu look corrupt and desperate. It also gives his daughter a spark of wit, turning shame into fame. But there's no proof it ever happened. No inscription, no record, no mention in any Egyptian text. No pyramid carries a carving that says, "Built by the king's daughter with stones from her clients." The royal archives don't mention anything close, and it's hard to picture a scribe writing, "Year 17 of Khufu, the princess opened a brothel to raise funds." Money didn't even exist in Egypt then. People traded in grain, cattle, land, and labor. If Khufu wanted more supplies, he could simply order them. He didn't need his daughter running a business. So again, the story falls apart on every level. Historians agree it's a legend. Herodotus lived 2,000 years after Khufu. He just wrote down what local priests or guides told him. By then, fact had turned into folklore, and folklore into jokes. Some think the Egyptians were teasing him. Maybe they pointed at a small pyramid and said, "That one? Built by the king's daughter's talents." A dry kind of humor, mocking Khufu's greed. Even Herodotus didn't sound sure. He used the phrase, "they say," which is historian speak for, "don't blame me." He got plenty of other facts wrong, too, like saying a canal ran under the Great Pyramid. Later writers copied his errors and added their own. Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BC, claimed Menkaur's pyramid was built by his mistress, Rhodopis, using money from her lovers. Herodotus had already denied that, but the theme stuck. People liked tales that mixed sex, power, and stone. But anyhow, the story of Khufu's daughter works better as a symbol than as history, for it gave ordinary Egyptians a way to laugh at their rulers. Historians today view Khufu more calmly. Since nothing in the records paints him as cruel or insane, his pyramid points instead to planning and teamwork. But since no first-hand records survive, the gaps invited imagination. Legends like the one we spoke of stuck around because they carry a small truth, a quiet protest against unfairness. They remind us that power and suffering often went hand in hand, and that great monuments can inspire both wonder and resentment. We'll probably never know how each block was lifted or what Khufu was really like. The truth was likely practical, not scandalous, about rations and schedules, not royal drama. The Great Pyramid still guards many secrets, but the pull of its myths remains strong. Khufu's daughter's tale may be fiction, yet it adds a strange kind of warmth to the cold stone. So what do you think? Was the story of Khufu's daughter a sharp bit of satire or pure invention? Share your thoughts below. And if you like digging through old mysteries, stick around. The Great Pyramid has plenty more secrets. The sands of time are full of stories, waiting for someone curious enough to listen.